All right, y'all. Today we're talking about our slow descent from democracy into kleptocracy. And we're going to talk about what the left can learn from the right's obsession with crypto. And as with everything with the Trump administration, we're going to be questioning our sanity the entire time. So kicking it off is Don Jr., the boy genius, telling us how Trump, the stable genius, making $60 million almost from his son's crypto companies, is like crypto, basically imaginary.
Crypto, your dad's financial disclosure form came out, and I saw he had, I think it was $57.7 million in income from the crypto company World Financial Liberty that you guys are associated
World Liberty
with. So,
Financial.
World Liberty Financial. So he does benefit financially from your enterprise, you and Eric,
he has
right?
ownership, but he doesn't touch it, right? That's all walled off. Eric and I are the signatories on that. We manage the trust. We don't talk to him about it. He doesn't, get involved in that. But he did say and ran on a campaign that he was going to be an active proponent for crypto.
Yeah.
And again, it's because the people that we used to be able to call here no longer took our calls. We weren't just going to pick up our ball, go home, get in a corner, suck our thumb and cry for mommy. We actually said, hey, we're going to fight back, and we're going to take these things that we think are unfair and unjust, and we're going to fix that.
See, Donald Trump isn't making that money because all that money is walled off, and he doesn't touch it, which, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that like how most money works? Like if I get a paycheck and it goes behind the wall of a bank and I don't touch it, it's still my money, right? But apparently not. Apparently Donald Trump would have to touch the money and then spend the money for him to actually be considered having the money. You gotta hand it to Kendall Roy. I mean, this is like some grade A tech bro BS. But hey, I am a white dude in my 30s, which means I am biologically predisposed to being enchanted by crypto. So honestly, Don, you've almost sold me. All I need for you to do is somehow sneak in the word woke. Let's see if you can do it, folks.
Is that fight now centered around regulation? And if so, how do you think that industry, crypto, should be regulated?
Well, I think the regulation side, that's going to be government. I'm not involved on the regulation side, but he said and campaigned on the sort of unfair nature of what's happened in finance. If someone checks a bunch of woke boxes, they get a home loan that they can't possibly afford. Someone with a great credit score that happened to buy MAGA swag or bought a Bible, is on an FBI terror watch list over the last 4 years. We've seen that. So what we wanted to do was create something that is truly fair. So the democratization of finance is actually a really big theme of what we campaigned on, and we're trying to help create that.
Wow, he did it. He somehow managed to sneak in the word woke. He's really nailing it. In fact, let me check my woke checkboxes here. Let's see. Brazen lying? Check. Using traditionally masculine language like fight justice and not sucking one's thumb and crying for mommy? Check. And playing into the self-victimizing mentality of evangelical Christians or people who, quote, bought a Bible, I think is what he said. Congrats, Don. I'm in. You sold me. All we need now is a really cool commercial. So roll it, Eric.
Big news. The World Liberty Financial token sale is now live. Crypto is the future. Let's embrace this incredible technology and lead the world in digital economy. Go to worldlibertyfinancial.com.
I'm not really a fan of that whole leopards ate my face thing, Like, I get it. It can be funny sometimes. It's Schadenfreude. But generally speaking, I don't like when anybody is negatively impacted by policies, even if they voted for those policies. As the late Michael Brooks once said, be kind to people, be ruthless to systems. However, if you fall for this, you are one of the dumbest human beings on the planet, and you do deserve to be made fun of for the rest of your life. I'm sorry, you do. So let's see what Trump has to say about it in a video that is somehow not AI.
Many have called me the first crypto president. That's an honor. I really do consider that a very big honor, actually. And starting on day one, we ended the Biden administration's war on crypto. It was an absolute war and very unfair. And we unleashed American innovators to do what you do best, lead the world into new frontiers. But we are not done yet. My administration is working with Congress to pass the Genius Act, supporting the creation of dollar-backed stablecoins. And we also will be working to create clear and simple market frameworks that will allow America to dominate the future of crypto and Bitcoin.
Hey, that sounds like a great way for rich people to launder money. Fortunately, Trump doesn't have anything to do with all this crypto stuff, unless you count, let's see here. Well, he did the NFT thing, and then Melania did the NFT thing, and apparently they're trying to build a Bitcoin treasury, and certain family members are all over Ethereum, and there's a labyrinth of LLCs like DT Marks, DeFi member, DT. You know what? Let's just look at a graph. There it is. And hey, if you're starting to get the distinct impression that everyday Americans are going to be screwed over to benefit the wealthy, when has that ever happened? Let's cut to a clip.
Then today you have the Committee for a Responsible Budget coming out and saying that, in its current form, as written, it will add $15 trillion to the debt. We're already at $37 trillion. What do you say to people who look at that and say, I thought we were going in the other direction? What happened to a more responsible budget?
Well, we are, and this will reduce the deficit, not increase it. And the reason for that is, one, we are going to have the biggest spending reduction in history. But secondly, all the other things I mentioned, Martha, are going to generate growth in the economy. And when the economy is growing and expanding and people are investing, you get more government revenue.
Sure, yeah, the Committee for a Responsible Budget says we're going to add $15 trillion to the deficit, but the Committee of Why Don't You Shut Up says that actually stripping people of their SNAP benefits and taking away their health care will actually stimulate the economy, because if there's one thing that people who can't afford food or health care love to do, it's buy stuff. So, are we in a kleptocracy? Let's hear what Scott Galloway has to say.
And the vast majority of people who are buying small amounts, supporters of the president, I'm guessing, lost money.
But that's the definition of a kleptocracy, is that a small number of people with proximity to power make an exceptional amount of money, but the larger public loses a lot of money. It extends beyond that. On April, I believe it was the 9th, at 1 p.m., there was abnormal trading volume in calls, people betting the stock market was going to go up. And then at 1:18, Trump announced he was pausing tariffs, and the market screamed to one of its largest gains in history. So somebody knew at 1 p.m. what he was about to do. This is arguably the biggest grift in modern history.
So 58 crypto wallets have made millions, as opposed to the 764,000 wallets that have lost money. And we're about to push through a budget that's going to add $15 trillion to the deficit, and our president has made almost $60 million from his son's crypto companies, except he hasn't really made that money because he only has that money, or something, I don't know, because words don't mean anything anymore, except when they do, because I do think there's a through line in all of this, and that through line is the power of language. Don Jr. knows perfectly well that by using this traditionally masculine and warrior-like rhetoric, he will endear himself to a very particular demographic, one that I used to be a part of. Because when young men feel incredibly aimless in life, or they feel like they're at a dead-end job, or they feel like their life just hasn't turned out the way they thought it would, something like cryptocurrency isn't just some joke to make fun of. It becomes symbolic for them, or, in the words of the psychologist Hans Kohut, a self-object. In other words, it's a person or an object that isn't really felt to be separate. It's part of them. It's an extension of them. And cryptocurrency is imbibed with this kind of adventurous, autonomous language that's all about strength and diamond hands and all that stuff. And then there's the woke Democrats that are trying to put a stop to it because they're once again trying to keep you from being the successful man that you were born to be. And that's an incredibly powerful story, whether you agree with it or not, especially when they look to the opposing political party and the story there is either non-existent or way worse. So I don't think this whole grift is entirely on the Trump administration. I do think liberals have contributed to the conditions that have allowed this grift to be so incredibly successful. And in doing so, I think they've left a lot of votes on the table. So I think there's plenty to learn from all of this on the left, rather than just make fun of these people for, whatever. I will say, though, if you fall for this, you're dumb. You're dumb. And I don't know what the technical psychological term for that is, but I'm going to stick with dumb. You can't look at it. Are you dumb? You don't want to be dumb. 764. Anyway, I'll see you next time, everybody.